It was the first day at a new school for Alina, and she felt like her heart was trying to leap out of her chest. Everything was unfamiliar. The polished white floors, the towering walls covered with student posters, and the noise of lockers, slamming and laughter echoing through the corridors. She clutched the straps of her faded backpack, the only familiar thing in a sea of strangers, and looked down at her plain shoes. Her long, shiny black hair, which her mother always said was, her crown fell like a curtain over her shoulders. Her eyes were soft, yet cautious, alert like someone who had seen too much too soon. Her father had been transferred to this new city just a week ago, and this school, Silvergate High, had a reputation for being top-tier academically, but notorious for its social cliques. Alina had heard stories about schools with cheerleaders, who ruled the hallways, and mean girls who dictated fashion. But she hoped those were just TV exaggerations. She hoped she could blend in quietly, make a friend or two, and just survive. She never wanted to stand out. But fate, as it always does, had other plans. As she entered her first class, English literature, she scanned the room and chose the seat closest to the window. The desk next to her was empty. She took out her notebook and tried not to make eye contact with anyone. The room buzzed with chatter until the teacher entered, but in those few moments before silence fell, a sharp whisper cut through the air. "Who's the girl in the thrift store jeans?" It was a voice filled with amusement and venom. Alina didn't look up, but she felt the heat of the attention shift toward her like a spotlight. The owner of the voice was Lana Rivers, blonde, confident, with perfectly manicured nails that tapped rhythmically against her desk. Lana was flanked by two girls who acted more like bodyguards than friends. Sienna, who always chewed gum like it was a statement, and Maddie, who had the cruelest smile Alina had ever seen. The teacher introduced Alina to the class. "Everyone, this is Alina Riaz. She's joining us from Lahore. Please make her feel welcome." The word Lahore seemed to echo like a foreign bell. Some students muttered polite greetings, while others looked bored. Lana smirked. "So exotic," she said, under her breath, just loud enough for her side of the room to hear. The class giggled. Alina pretended not to notice, but something inside her coiled tightly. She took a deep breath and reminded herself of her mother's words. "Kindness is not weakness. Be strong in silence. Your time will come." Days passed, but the teasing escalated. It started small. Someone would kick her backpack in the hallway, spill water near her desk, or whisper insults behind her back. Lana and her clique took special pleasure in mocking Alina's traditional lunches, her soft Urdu accent, and her modest clothes. One day, they even took a photo of her praying quietly in the corner of the library and shared it on their group chat with laughing emojis. Alina knew because she overheard them giggling about it in the restroom. The worst part wasn't the bullying, it was the indifference. Teachers never saw it, classmates never cared, and Alina felt invisible, even when she was being humiliated. But not everyone was cruel. One person did notice. His name was Jaden. He sat 2 rows behind her in most of her classes, always scribbling in a worn-out sketchbook. He had shaggy hair that fell into his eyes and a quiet presence that didn't try to impress anyone. He saw what the others didn't, or didn't want to. He noticed the tears Alina wiped away during lunch breaks, the fake smiles she wore when a teacher asked her if she was settling in okay, and the way her hand trembled when she opened her locker, always bracing for something awful. One afternoon, as Alina left the class, she found a small, sticky note on her desk. It read, "Don't let them change who you are. They're loud because they're afraid of silence. You're stronger than you think." It wasn't signed, but she recognized the handwriting. She smiled, for the first time in days. Unfortunately, kindness was not contagious. The bullies noticed the note too. Lana didn't like losing attention, especially to someone like Alina, and she definitely didn't like the idea of Jaden noticing anyone but her. "Let's make her interesting," Lana said one morning, her voice low and dangerous. "Let's give her a real Silvergate welcome." Sienna laughed, flipping her hair. "What are you thinking?" Lana leaned in. "A makeover. She thinks her hair makes her special, right? Let's fix that." The plan was cruel, the timing was deliberate, and the classroom was their stage. It happened on a Friday. Alina was writing something in her notebook when she felt the sudden tug. Sharp, cold metal snipped through the silence. It was over in seconds. A lock of her hair fell to the floor. She froze. So did the rest of the class. For a moment no one spoke, no one breathed. Lana held the scissors, smirking like it was a prank. "Oops," she said, tossing the cut hair onto Alina's desk. Sienna cackled. Maddie clapped slowly. The teacher had stepped out. Jaden stood up. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. The classroom erupted. Phones came out. Someone was filming. Someone gasped. Alina didn't cry, she didn't scream. She stood up slowly, her face expressionless, her fingers brushing against the uneven edge where her hair used to fall. "You think this hurts me?" she whispered. "You think this breaks me?" Lana rolled her eyes. "Relax, it's just hair." But something had shifted. Jaden walked her to the principal's office. The video went viral by that evening. Students shared it on TikTok, tagging it with Dasha Justice for Alina. It wasn't just about a haircut. It was about humiliation, racism, bullying, and it hit people differently. The internet, as cruel as it could be, turned on Lana and her friends. Her followers dropped. Sponsors pulled back from her influencer profile. Parents started calling the school. News outlets reached out. Alina, the quiet girl from Lahore, suddenly became a symbol. But the real shock hadn't even happened yet. Something was coming. Something no one expected, something that would change the entire school forever. The silence in the principal's office was thick, heavy with the weight of what had just occurred. Alina sat upright in her chair, her face still numb. A small lock of her cut hair lay in a plastic zip bag on the desk, evidence of the cruelty she just endured. Principal Hargrove, an older man with tired eyes, looked at the footage Jaden had shown him with a kind of stunned disbelief. He had heard complaints before, minor teasing, harmless jokes, immature pranks, but this was different. This was assault. This was a school scandal waiting to explode. Jaden sat beside Alina, his arms crossed tightly as if bracing himself to defend her against the world. "They did it deliberately," he said. "They planned it. You can hear them laughing. Look at her face. That's not a joke. That's bullying." Principal Hargrove sighed, rubbed his temple and reached for the intercom. "Send Lana Rivers, Sienna Gold, and Madeline Gray to the main office immediately." His voice was unusually firm. Alina said nothing. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, but her mind was racing, not with fear or pain, but with focus. She was done being quiet. When Lana and her crew walked into the office, they still carried the arrogance of girls who thought they were untouchable. They leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes rolling. "What's the big deal?" Lana said. "It was just a joke. She's acting like we stabbed her." Jaden stood up. "You humiliated her in front of the whole class." Sienna popped her gum. "Yeah, and it's high school. People get teased, she'll live." But Principal Hargrove wasn't buying it. He turned the laptop toward them and hit play. The room filled with the sound of Lana's voice, the snip of scissors, and gasps from classmates. The video ended. In dead silence. "Effective immediately," Hargrove said. "All three of you are suspended pending investigation. You will not attend any school events. You will be removed from student council and cheer squad, and this incident will be reported to the school board." Lana's face paled. "Wait, what? You're kidding, right?" Hargrove shook his head. This school does not tolerate harassment, and we certainly do not excuse violent behavior. When the girls left, their faces were frozen in disbelief. They weren't used to consequences. By that evening, the story had spread beyond the Deu school. Alina's name trended locally. Parents began calling in, some to support, others to accuse the school of being soft. But most were outraged on Alina's behalf. News channels picked up the story. Teen girl's hair cut by bullies at prestigious school. Shocking footage surfaces online. Bloggers weighed in. Activists tweeted. Alina was no longer just a student. She had become a headline. And for the first time, people started listening. Jaden stayed by her side. They would sit together at lunch now, not hidden in corners, but out in the open. Students who had once ignored her began offering apologies, some sincere, others clearly performative. But one girl's approach surprised her most. Her name was Kayla, a shy, nervous sophomore who quietly passed Alina a folded piece of paper in the hallway. It read, "Thank you. I've been bullied too, but I never stood up. You did. You gave me courage." Something inside Alina shifted. This wasn't just about her anymore. The school arranged a formal apology meeting. Lana and her gang were forced to apologize publicly in front of the entire 11th grade. Standing on stage in the auditorium, Lana's tone was robotic, her face emotionless. "I apologize for my actions toward Alina. It was wrong and cruel." But no one missed the way her hands were clenched into fists or the glare she threw at Jaden afterward. Sienna and Maddie followed with similarly hollow words. Students in the audience watched with mixed expressions, some sympathetic, others skeptical. When it was Alina's turn to speak, she hesitated. The microphone felt heavier than she expected. She looked out at the crowd, her voice trembling for just a second. "You cut my hair to embarrass me," she said softly. "But all you did was reveal how strong I really am. You mocked my background, my faith, my silence. But silence isn't weakness. It's power. You made me a victim, but I'm choosing to be a voice." The room went still. Then someone clapped, then another. A wave of applause rippled through the students. Even some teachers stood. Lana turned away, her face burning. Outside the school walls, the impact grew. Influencers reposted the video. Celebrities commented support. One Women's Rights Foundation even contacted Alina's father with a scholarship offer. But amidst all the praise and noise, Alina stayed grounded. She never sought fame. All she ever wanted was peace. Still, she realized something deeper now, that her story had opened a door for others. But peace wouldn't come that easily. A week after the incident, Alina received a threatening anonymous message in her locker. "You think you've won? Watch your back." She showed Jaden immediately. He frowned, anger flashing in his eyes. "It has to be them. They're not done." But there was no proof. Principal Hargrove began an internal review. Cameras were checked. The handwriting was compared. Nothing matched. Lana, Sienna, and Maddie denied everything. "She's just trying to keep us suspended longer," Lana sneered. "She's playing the victim card." The tension at school rose. Whispers filled the halls. Sides were being chosen. Jaden started walking Alina home every day. "I just don't trust them," he said. "They're quiet now, but they're plotting something." Alina appreciated the company. She felt safer, but not completely. A shadow had been cast, and it was growing longer. One night, she received a message request on social media. It was from a fake account. No profile picture, no followers. The message simply read, "Next time we'll cut more than just your hair." The fear returned, but this time it didn't paralyze her. It sparked something deeper, purpose. She screenshotted everything, reported the account, and then made a decision that surprised even Jaden. She recorded a video. Just her face, calm, brave. "Hi, my name is Alina Riaz. A few weeks ago I was humiliated by bullies in my class. Since then I've received threats. I've been told to stay quiet, to stop standing up. But I won't, because I know now that this isn't just about me. It's about every student who's ever been mocked, every girl who's ever been told her worth is in her appearance, and every voice that was ever silenced. I won't be silenced, not again. She posted the video at midnight. By morning it had over 300,000 views. But the real shock came next. A teacher, Ms. Carter, the art instructor, came to her during break and closed the door behind her. "Alina," she said gently, "I need to tell you something. It's about Lana and her mother." What Ms. Carter revealed would shake everything. It would reveal secrets hidden deep in the school's walls, and it would prove that Alina's fight had only just begun. The door clicked shut behind Miss Carter, and for a moment the small art office felt like a secret courtroom. Her eyes were filled with both worry and determination as she sat across from Alina and Jaden. Her voice dropped to a whisper, as if the walls themselves had ears. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room," she began, "but you deserve to know what you're up against." Alina leaned forward. "What is it?" Ms. Carter exhaled. "Lana's mother, Vanessa. Rivers is not just a wealthy parent. She's on the Silvergate School Board. She has influence over the principal, the district policies, even the way disciplinary actions are processed. For years, she's protected Lana. There have been complaints before, not as serious as yours, but enough to raise red flags, bullying, exclusion, intimidation. Every time a report reached the board, it conveniently vanished." Jaden's eyes narrowed. "You're saying they've been covering for her?" "Yes," Ms. Carter nodded. "And not just her. Other kids from powerful families, too. There's a culture here, unspoken but enforced, where the elite students are untouchable. I've watched good teachers get transferred or pushed out for speaking up. I stayed silent because I thought it wouldn't matter, but you," she looked at Alina, "you changed that. You made the school board nervous." Alina felt a chill crawl down her spine. "Is that why I've been getting threats?" "Possibly," Ms. Carter said carefully. "Or it could be someone acting on their own, but I wouldn't underestimate how far some people will go to protect their image." Jaden looked at Alina. "So what do we do?" "We expose them," Alina said. Her voice wasn't shaking anymore. "All of them." It began with research. Alina and Jaden spent hours after school in the library, combing through school records, old yearbooks, digital newsletters. Ms. Carter helped quietly, providing insight and connections. What they found was disturbing. Several anonymous complaints filed against Lana and her friends over the years: verbal abuse, locker vandalism, racial slurs, social media bullying. None of them had ever been officially resolved. The files simply stopped with no explanation. Most of the students who filed them had transferred or mysteriously reconciled. Alina reached out to a few of them on social media. One girl replied, Daniela Ruiz, who now lived in another state. On a late-night video call, Daniela revealed her own story. "Lana destroyed me," she said. "She spread rumors, hacked my Snapchat, and made fake accounts to harass me. When I told the school, her mom showed up at my house, and told my parents they'd ruin us if we didn't keep quiet." Her voice trembled. "So we moved. I've never talked about it until now." Alina recorded the call with Daniela's permission. That was the first piece of evidence. More followed. One boy anonymously shared screenshots of messages from Sienna threatening to release photos of him if he ever spoke out. Another girl admitted to watching Lana sabotage a student science project and then blame a janitor. Story after story came in like floodwater bursting through a dam. Jayden edited everything together into a mini documentary. They titled it The Silvergate Silence: How Privilege Protects Bullies. The video dropped on a Thursday evening. Within hours, it exploded. Over 500,000 views, thousands of comments. Silvergate Silence began trending on Twitter and TikTok. Alumni started sharing their stories. Former teachers commented with support. News outlets contacted Alina for interviews, but not everyone was thrilled. The next morning, Alina arrived at school to find red paint splattered across her locker. Big ugly letters. Liar, her locker had been emptied, her books were gone, her photos ripped. Jayden was furious. They're getting desperate. Principal Hargrove called her in again. His face was pale. Alina, the school board is demanding a formal inquiry. Some of the parents are accusing you of defamation. Alina stared at him. So I'm the problem now? No, he said, but this is bigger than me, bigger than the school, and I need you to be prepared. They won't go down without a fight. That night, Alina received a second anonymous message. You opened Pandora's box. Hope you can handle what comes out. But this time, she didn't. Feel fear. She felt fire. She posted another video, no edits, no filters. I was bullied, humiliated, and threatened, but now I know the truth. It wasn't just about hair or accents or culture. It was about power and the people who abuse it. I will not stop speaking. I will not be quiet. Because I'm not just fighting for myself anymore. I'm fighting for every student who was ever made to feel small. Watch closely. This is not the end. It's the beginning. The next morning, a reporter from Channel 7 News showed up at Silvergate's. Gates, then came CNN, then BBC Asia. The world was watching. Inside the school, a quiet storm brewed. Lana had returned after her suspension, but things had changed. Students avoided her. Teachers watched her carefully. Sponsors had dropped her. Her influencer status was collapsing, but her rage had only grown. One afternoon, she cornered Alina in the restroom. You ruined everything, she hissed. Do you even realize what you've done? Alina stared at her. I told the truth. You ruined yourself. Lana's eyes flashed. This isn't over. But it was, at least for her. Because that very night, Ms. Carter emailed Alina and Jayden a sealed document. It was a copy of an internal email thread between board members, discussing how to bury past bullying reports, citing board member Vanessa Rivers' request to protect her daughter. Alina had proof, and she was going to use it. Alina sat quietly on her bed, the glow from her laptop painting a determined fire across her face. The email Ms. Carter had sent her was real, verified, time-stamped. It was everything they needed, and more. An internal thread, stretching back over 2 years, revealing a web of protection, manipulation, and deliberate suppression of bullying cases involving children of board members. It wasn't just Lana. There were at least 3 other names mentioned, sons and daughters of the elite, each with complaints swept under expensive rugs. But it was the name at the top that mattered most. Vanessa Rivers. Alina forwarded the email to a journalist from the National Daily who had contacted her earlier. Within hours, the response was clear. We're publishing a full expose. You've just blown the lid off something much bigger than your school. She stared at the screen for a long moment, thinking about how far she'd come from that first day in class. A quiet new girl, an outsider, a target, but not anymore. The next morning, chaos erupted. The National Daily's headline was everywhere. Elite school board accused of hiding bullying scandals. Whistleblower student provides leaked emails. By 10 a.m., reporters crowded outside. Silvergate High. Police officers were stationed at the gate. Board members arrived in dark cars. Protesters, students, parents, activists marched outside holding signs. "We stand with Alina." No more silence. Equal rules for all. In classrooms, no lessons were taught. Teachers streamed the news reports onto projectors. Students whispered excitedly, others texted updates. Principal Hargrove called an emergency assembly. The auditorium was packed. Alina sat in the front row next to Jaden, cameras flashing, phones raised. Lana was nowhere to be seen. Principal Hargrove took the stage. "I want to begin," he said, "by acknowledging that our school failed many students. We failed to protect them, to support them, and to ensure their voices were heard. What has come to light is deeply disturbing." He paused. "But it's also an opportunity to change, and that change starts today." Applause echoed, tentative but growing. Then he did something no one expected. He turned to Alina. "Would you join me on stage?" She froze. Jaden nudged her. "Go." Alina walked up slowly, heart pounding. She turned to face her classmates, her teachers, the world. "I never wanted to be in the spotlight," she began. "I just wanted to go to school. But when someone cut my hair in front of everyone, they also cut the silence. And from that moment on, I knew I had two choices, hide or fight. I chose to fight." The room was silent. "I didn't fight with fists. I fought with truth, with my story. And I learned something powerful. Truth is contagious. When one person tells it, others find the courage to tell theirs." She paused. "This isn't just about me. This is about everyone who was ever bullied and told to stay quiet. It's about everyone who was ignored because their family didn't sit on a board. Today we say, no more." The audience erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar, a rising tide. And at the edge of it, Principal Hargrove placed his hand on her shoulder. That evening, an emergency school board meeting was held. It was open to the public. Parents packed the room. Journalists filmed from the back. Alina sat quietly next. To Ms. Carter, watching as Vanessa Rivers entered, her face stiff and pale, the room buzzed with tension. Board Chairwoman Evelyn Chen took the floor. "We have reviewed the evidence, including the internal email leaks. It is clear that a serious breach of policy and ethics has occurred." Vanessa stood up. "Those emails were taken out of context. This is a witch hunt." A parent shouted, "Your daughter bullied mine and you protected her." Another yelled, "How many more kids had to suffer so your child could feel above the rules?" Vanessa turned red. "My daughter is not the only one. Everyone teases each other in high school. This is a smear campaign by a girl who..." Alina stood up. The room went quiet. "I didn't smear anyone," she said softly. "You're just angry that the truth came out." Chairwoman Chen raised her hand. "Enough. After a vote, the board has decided to suspend Vanessa Rivers pending formal investigation, and all student complaints from the past 5 years will be reopened." Gasps filled the room. It was done. The next week, things began to shift fast. Lana was officially expelled. Sienna and Madeline were suspended for the rest of the academic year and forced to complete a restorative justice program. Ms. Carter was promoted to head of student wellness, and Alina, she became a hero, but not one who bragged. Instead, she focused on building something lasting. She helped the school create a peer advocacy council, trained to support and defend students facing bullying or discrimination. Jaden was named co-lead. Daniela Ruiz, the girl who had moved states, returned for a visit and spoke at the first council meeting. "I never thought I'd walk through these halls again," she said, "but someone gave me back my courage, and that someone was Alina." Alina smiled. It was all of us. In her final video before taking a break from social media, Alina shared a message that resonated around the world. It started with scissors, but it ended with strength. Never let anyone tell you your voice doesn't matter. Speak up, speak loud, and never stop. She closed with a small smile. Thank you for standing with me. If you believe in stories that spark change, hit that subscribe button on USX, because this isn't just a channel, it's a movement. The video crossed 5 million views in a week, and yet something still lingered in the shadows. Jaden had found something else in the emails, something unfinished, a name that wasn't crossed out, a name tied to a hidden fund connected to the board, someone more powerful than Vanessa Rivers, someone who didn't like loose ends. And Alina was about to face her biggest challenge yet. The quiet after the storm was short-lived. Though Vanessa Rivers had been suspended and Lana expelled, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that something remained unresolved. Something deeper, darker, and more dangerous than anyone had dared imagine. Jaden sensed it too. Late one evening, he appeared at Alina's door with a USB drive and a look she hadn't seen on his face before: fear. I didn't show this to anyone yet, he said as he stepped into her room. I wasn't sure if I should, but you need to see it. Alina's heart pounded as she inserted the drive into her laptop. A folder popped up titled Gate Docs. Inside were copies of financial documents Jaden had quietly accessed through a secure alumni login from his father, who once briefly served on the school board. What he'd found was stunning. Look at the names on this list, he said. Alina leaned in. There it was. An internal ledger showing school donations, grant, allocations, and untraceable scholarship fund movements. But at the top of the list was a donor name that made Alina's stomach drop. M. Hargrove Education Trust. Principal Hargrove, the man who stood on stage beside her, the man who claimed to support her, the man who now appeared to have been funding and silently controlling the very system he pretended to denounce. Alina's voice trembled. Why would he do this? Jaden explained. The trust has funneled money into the school's special achievement grants, but most of those grants went directly to families of board members, elite students, and even staff who looked the other way. The betrayal cut deep. Alina thought of how Hargrove had comforted her, defended her in front of the students, pretended to be on her side. But he wasn't a puppet. He was the puppeteer. The next day, Alina returned to school pretending everything was normal. But inside, her mind raced. She met with Ms. Carter and shared the findings. At first, her mentor refused to believe it. Hargrove's been at this school for 15 years. He gave me my job. Jaden laid out the data. The shell companies, the anonymized donations, the payouts. Ms. Carter sat back in her chair, eyes wide. My God. All this time, we thought he was powerless under the board. No, Alina whispered. He built the board. They had to be strategic. One wrong move, and Hargrove would bury the truth before anyone believed them. He had connections in the press, in the district, and in local politics. And worse, he had access to student records. Evidence could disappear. So, they devised a plan. First, Alina secretly reached out to the investigative journalist who had published the first exposé. She arranged a secret off-campus meeting at a coffee shop 2 towns away. The journalist, named Farah Liu, listened carefully and took the USB. This goes higher than anyone imagined, Farah said, brows furrowed. If we publish this, we need to protect you both. Are you prepared for what's coming? Alina nodded. We've come too far to stop now. The second step was harder, winning back the trust of the student body without tipping off Hargrove. They began hosting a weekly podcast under the Peer Advocacy Council, discussing school transparency, justice, and power abuse, carefully planting seeds about deeper corruption. The students responded with fiery engagement. Then came the third move, a live-streamed debate forum. Alina publicly invited Principal Hargrove to join a discussion about school reform and student rights. To everyone's surprise, he agreed. It was set to be held in the school auditorium with the whole student body invited and cameras rolling. The night of the debate, Silvergate buzzed with electricity. Students packed into the seats. Live stream. Numbers climbed into the hundreds of thousands. Hargrove entered confidently, dressed in a crisp grey suit, smiling like a man who'd already won. Alina stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. "I want to begin by thanking Principal Hargrove for joining us tonight," she said. He nodded, gracious. "And I want to begin," she continued, "by asking a simple question. What does integrity mean to you?" Hargrove chuckled politely. "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." Alina smiled. "I agree." She turned to the audience. "So let's talk about what people do when they think no one is watching." She pressed a button on her laptop. The projector behind them lit up. Financial records, trust fund diagrams, ledger screenshots, and finally, an internal memo signed by M. Hargrove himself, directing a payout to a parent with influence. The auditorium exploded. Gasps, shouts, phones lifted to record every second. Hargrove's face twisted. "Where did you get that? That's private." Alina didn't blink. "It's evidence." Ms. Carter stepped out from behind the curtain, holding a folder. "This morning," she said, her voice clear and strong, "I submitted these documents to the State Education Ethics Board. You're under investigation, Mr. Hargrove." He looked stunned, betrayed. "You? You're one of them?" "No," she replied. "I'm one of us." Security arrived within minutes. Hargrove was escorted out, furious and yelling, claiming it was a setup. The students erupted into cheers. Alina stood on stage, the projector light behind her, and raised her mic one last time. "We believed this school could change, and today we proved it." The school year should have been winding down. Seniors were preparing for graduation, teachers winding up exams, the yearbook committee racing against deadlines. But for Alina, things weren't ending. They were just beginning. Principal Hargrove's arrest had sent shockwaves through Silvergate. News stations ran the story daily, branding it the most corrupt high school scandal in state history. A full-scale investigation was underway. Several board members resigned. Anonymous whistleblowers emerged. Even teachers who had been silent for years came forward, some in tears, finally speaking up. Students started calling Alina the girl who took down the system. She didn't like the title. She hadn't done it alone. She credited Jaden, Ms. Carter, even the students who had once stood by silently but chose to finally speak. It was all of them. And yet, victory wasn't as sweet as she expected. There were threats. Anonymous emails warning her to back off now. Notes shoved into her locker with words like "traitor" and "enjoy your 15 minutes." Even at home, the tension grew. One morning, someone vandalized her family's front gate. "Liar," spray-painted in angry red. But instead of backing down, Alina became more determined. "Let them come," she said to Jaden one afternoon as they sat under their favorite oak tree behind school. "They're afraid. That means we're winning." Jaden smiled. "You know, I used to think the biggest bullies were just students in the hallways. Now I know. They wear suits too." They both laughed quietly. The war wasn't over, but they were no longer fighting alone. The day of graduation arrived. Alina hadn't planned to attend. With everything going on, standing in a gown and cap felt trivial. But when she stepped outside that morning, something changed her mind. On the front porch sat a small, wrapped box. There was no name. Inside was a note. For the girl, who reminded us all what courage looks like. Your voice changed lives, never stop speaking. Beneath it was a tiny silver microphone charm on a chain. She stood still, holding it to her chest. Whoever had sent it, they understood. And that meant everything. That afternoon, she walked across the graduation stage, her head held high. Cheers erupted from the crowd, not just from her class, but from parents, teachers, and students from other grades too. When her name was called, even the superintendent stood to clap. But the biggest surprise came after. As the ceremony ended, the media cornered her again. Cameras, microphones. "Alina, what's next? Will you continue your activism?" She thought for a moment, then smiled. "I'm not done telling the truth," she said, "and I'm definitely not done telling stories." That night, a new video went live on her channel, USX. It wasn't dramatic. No flashy editing, just Alina sitting at her desk with the silver microphone charm hanging from her neck. "This is the final chapter of one story," she said, "but not the final chapter of mine. Now, when I first came to Silvergate, I was afraid of everything, of standing out, of being alone. I didn't think I was strong. I didn't think I was enough. But now I know courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the whisper that says, try again tomorrow. If you've ever felt small or broken or invisible, I see you, and I want you to know something. Your story matters. Your voice matters. You matter." She paused, then leaned forward and smiled. "So if you believe in stories that expose lies, that uplift truth, that make bullies tremble and victims, stand tall, subscribe to USX. We're not just a channel, we're a movement, and we're just getting started." The video crossed 10 million views in a single week. Alina was invited to speak at conferences. She was offered a publishing deal to turn her story into a book. And just before she left for college, she received a letter in the mail. It was from Daniela Ruiz, the girl who had moved states after being bullied by Lana. The letter read, "You don't know this, but I almost gave up. Not just on school, but on myself. But then I watched your story and I cried, and then I stood up and I told my truth. Thank you. You saved me. You saved so many of us." Alina folded the letter and tucked it into her journal. Later that night, as she walked through the empty school hallway one last time, she paused outside the classroom where it all started. The scissors, the silence, the shame. She walked in, ran her hand across the desk she once sat at, then took out a Sharpie and wrote a single line beneath the table. She came. They cut. She rose. The bell rang one final time, but this time she wasn't running from anything. She was walking towards something greater.